I would pick weird people. Like my first real hero I looked up to was Carl Lewis.
Yeah.
The world's fastest man.
Absolutely.
So in Sports Illustrated for kids, I would go ahead and like tear out stuff about him and I'd mail it to him. And then one day I got an envelope back. He signed it. So I just kept sending stuff.
Right?
Yeah. So I kept sending stuff, the Olympic posters, all that. He just kept signing and kept sending them back. I was probably his biggest fan.
100%. There are days, even now, where, this last year for all of us was rough. I have to look at my compensation and be like, okay, it's still more than I made as an educator.
Right.
We still have a great life. We're still able to pay our bills.
Live in a great city.
Things are going to turn around. You just keep doing the work.
All right. We've got Ryan Templeman, loan officer, here with me and a good friend here at Cross Country Mortgage Franklin. And so thanks for being here, Ryan.
Absolutely.
So tell me about the beginning. Like, originally, where are you from? Tell me a little bit about your family.
Yeah. Again, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I'm from California, and I know a lot of people here are like, they absolutely love to hear that, but originally from the Bay Area. I grew up in the East Bay, east of Oakland, further east of San Francisco, but
born, raised, and everything. Bay Area sports fan.
Just sports guy.
Who was your first hero?
As a kid, sports, it would be probably Mark McGwire.
Bash Brothers.
I still have that poster. I have it in my garage. I've had it now for almost, I don't want to say how old.
And Ricky Henderson. That was cool.
Got his glove.
Who was the catcher? Was it Ozzie?
Harry Steinbach and
Benny Santiago?
From the Giants, Benito Santiago.
Yeah, he was.
I still have all of my baseball cards. Him and Mark McGwire were rookies of the year the same year, 1987.
I would pick weird people. Like my first real hero I looked up to was Carl Lewis.
Yeah.
The world's fastest man.
Absolutely.
So in Sports Illustrated for kids, I would go ahead and like tear out stuff about him and I'd mail it to him. And then one day I got an envelope back. He signed it. So I just kept sending stuff. Yeah. So I kept sending stuff, the Olympic posters, all that. He just kept signing and kept sending them back.
Cool.
I was probably his biggest fan.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's awesome. But yeah, no, I mean, as a kid, I grew up loving baseball, and Mark McGwire and the A's as a kid, like you have one of the most amazing teams in baseball history playing, and we got to go to so many A's games. And so I guess Mark McGwire. My favorite baseball player of all time, though, was Cal Ripken Jr.
Oh, really? One of my childhood friends, that was his favorite. What'd you like about him?
Well, he played the position I played. He was a shortstop, and I was on the Orioles multiple times as a kid, and I was number 8, played the shortstop. And yeah, I shook his hand. And he autographed my glove at the Oakland Coliseum when I was probably 9 or 10 years old. So
I think he's the dude, maybe not, but I felt like Cal Ripken was a dude that brought a couple of things to the game. He brought class. He was always put together. Like, dude, always, his work ethic was insane. He was simple. He just was really, really simple. We did. He had that weird glove, didn't he? Was he first base?
no, he was shortstop.
He was shortstop, but didn't he have a special glove or something I'm thinking like was unique about him?
He may have. I mean, he was. I think he got a lot of good press because the way he treated fans. He was the guy that would stay after games, every game, and sign autographs.
Oh, really?
Teams waiting to get on the bus, go to the hotel, or, he wants to go home, or maybe his wife and kids were like, hey, time to come home. And I got to, my sister, for her college graduation gift from me, and I took her to the 2007 All-Star Game Home Run Derby in San Francisco. And they had a little exhibit at the, Moscone Center, and Cal Ripken was there doing like a hitting thing, and I'm 27 years old and acting like a little kid, had my digital camera, or I had an iPhone, and I'm taking pictures of him. I mean, I still have the picture. He like turned around and looked at me. He's all like froze for me for a second.
Nice.
I took a picture of him. It was pretty funny.
That's cool.
Looking at me like, you're such a dork.
Yeah. The sunglasses. That's what I was going to say. It's like he seemed like he was the guy that started that, and then all the kids, remember all the baseball, Babe Ruth, and
he also is 6'4". So for
really,
I thought that was pretty unique to have a shortstop be that tall. But yeah, no.
So you played short,
played shortstop, and pitched a little bit, and
nice.
Yeah.
Left-handed, right-handed?
Right-handed.
Okay, yeah.
And,
I tried second, but they wouldn't let me in high school. They moved me to outfield because I was left-handed, and you can't turn a double.
Right.
So
right, yeah. No, right. And baseball, I played anywhere, that they needed me, but those are my two favorite.
I look back at that now, and like I was fast, I was quick, but it's like it's not like you're in the major leagues trying to shave off a half a second. Right. And I could turn a double, but it's like these coaches in high school. Now I look back, I'm like, they're coaching these kids like they're supposed to be going directly to the major leagues. Like, we got to win every game. How about you let the kid play a little bit?
That's the hard thing because I coached varsity baseball for 7 or 8 years. And you got kids, they have their own pitching coaches, their own hitting coaches outside of high school. And I was a teacher and didn't really get paid much to do the coaching, but I was doing it because I loved it and it was a way to get involved. But yeah, going against like the summer ball, the travel ball.
Yeah.
Well, what do you know as a high school coach when I'm paying this guy $1,000?
No. Oh, wow.
Amazing, and this is how I should do things. And granted, some of those guys ended up making it,
Sure.
College, and some guys got in the pros. And I still am connected with those guys. But yeah, no, I 100% like the intensity nowadays with sports. It's, probably makes some kids not want to do it because they just want to play and be with their friends and not trying to be that serious.
And now you got cameras and video. They'll post you on the internet and make fun of you if you get hit in the face with a ball or something. Terrible. So that's a good segue to the next part, which is I know your wife. You're a busy man with your children. They're active. And what's that segue? What did it look like into, your profession before mortgages, which was education? So talk a little bit about your family, and let's talk about how did you get into education?
Yeah, I mean, I had a couple great high school teachers that really inspired me, history teachers, and I wanted to be a teacher. Now I went to college. I went to St. Mary's College. I went there to play. I mean, I went there as local, 30 minutes away, but I went there to play soccer. And wanted to play baseball as well, but then I decided, ultimately what ended up panning out is I was just going to be a student.
Yeah.
And, since the age of 9, I was doing sports and I loved it. And we're in the thick of it now with our kids. But anyways, I wanted to be a teacher. So I basically got my teaching, got my degree in social studies. I didn't go to college with like the thought, like I need to have a degree I'm going to make money.
Yeah.
I don't, my family was middle class. My dad worked really hard. And my mom worked very hard just to basically, we didn't have all the lavish vacations that maybe some of my friends or people I knew did, but my life was awesome. And I was inspired by teachers. I'm like, what a great career.
Yeah.
So I got my teaching degree. I ended up teaching back at the high school I went to. So I was teaching and coaching back at Hamilton Valley High School.
Okay.
So yeah, I started there at 22, student teaching and coaching.
Were you and Tony together yet?
No, we didn't know each other.
Okay.
So it wasn't until about 5 years later, my friend at work, her husband taught with Tony at the, a nearby school. And they basically said like, hey, you guys should meet. They told each of us that. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And this is before social media where you could look someone up and see what they look like.
Yeah.
You use Google. So I Googled her, and of course, this sounded weird, but
You Googled her.
I Googled her. But, I looked at her, I'm like, oh, yeah, for sure. Like, I want to meet her. And then they told her, like, yeah, he's a teacher and he's a baseball guy. And she's like, I don't date baseball guys.
Oh.
And anyways, but long story short, we ended up meeting, got married a year and a half later. Both teachers, we loved it. She was a coach she coached volleyball. And we loved the fact that like we got all our breaks together. Thanksgiving, Christmas break, summer, we got to spend a lot of time together. But we started a family pretty quickly after we get married. And I went back and got my master's degree, which at the time I thought was the best time to do it.
When was this? About what year?
2011.
Okay.
So my son was a year old. We were pregnant with Zoe.
Okay. Yeah.
I went back and got my master's, which is a 2-year program. My goal was to become a vice principal or principal.
Okay.
So did all that. Life is crazy too. Zoe's born in the middle of all that. And then I got a job as a middle school vice principal.
Wow.
For a year. I was actually working at 2 schools. It was insane, but I got it done. And then I moved up to high school for a couple of years after that. And then in the midst of that, I'll get to, the point of this. This is what I did as a teacher. I would go on tangents.
Yeah.
Kids loved me, but
No, it's good. It makes for great podcasts.
No, I'd go on tangents and I'd always connect it back to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And they would always laugh and they would try to get me to like, hey, Mr. T. They call me Mr. T. You see the baseball game this weekend? You see this? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, I'm supposed to be talking about the Cold War. And all of a sudden we're talking about the A's game. But in the midst of all that, my wife started working for a network marketing company, Arbonne, doing skincare and nutrition sales. And she'd used the products for years. And then she just figured, maybe I'll try selling it. And, if it got to the point where she could, make a car payment every month, like that's awesome for us as teachers. Well, her business just went through the roof.
Yeah, I met a lot of Arbonne accidental millionaires.
Yeah.
Not now, but like when that came out, and it's still, the people are successful at it.
Yeah. So, I mean, she still has her business, but she started doing that, and it got to the point where the lifestyle that we had and what we wanted to do, we wanted to be present for our kids, and being a vice principal, it got tough. And I knew going into it was going to be a time commitment, but now I had an outlet with Tony, what she created. She basically replaced our income.
Wow.
And so I got to the point where I'm like, I don't see myself.
This is about when?
2015, 16.
Okay, so 7 years ago.
8, 7. Yeah. So I got to the point, I'm like, I don't think I'm being a vice principal. I love the people, I love the kids, but doing the job, I don't think I want to do this for another 25, 30 years. And she said, then don't. Okay. I'm like, okay. So I literally, we there's more to it than that, but, I took a leave of absence in case maybe I want to go back into the classroom and teach.
Right. So we're at 2015.
2015.
You've decided that, education might not be the place for you right now, especially since Tony now has started a successful business. And you're starting to kind of question, like, what would be next. Mm-hmm. So and I say this because I want the viewers and the listeners to understand this was just 7 years ago, because you're going to take us through the journey of what's happened after that and how much has changed in 7 years. So hopefully that'll inspire people out there and help them understand that, if you're a teacher, if you're a nurse, if you're somebody who wants to change things, but you're scared to do it, like Ryan's got a really, really cool story. So what happened after that?
So, I put in my leave of absence, and February 12th, 2016 was my last day. I told the district I will work through the end of the year, and they go, no, respectfully, we want someone here who wants this job. So they got someone in, and I was I don't want to say, I wanted to make sure, I'm not trying to throw. The district was amazing. I went to school there, but it was just like, hey, right now, what's going on? This is not for me. I need to take some time. So I took a leave of absence, and I was helping her with her business while meeting with people, coffee appointments about other jobs. I kind of felt like that kid, like, what do I want to be when I grow up?
Right.
And at the time, I was 35. I was 35 years old. And, it was a shocker to a lot of people, family. They were like, oh, okay, because we went from salaried positions with pensions to no guaranteed income. And so we took a big risk. Now, granted, with Tony's business, we did a good job putting money away, investing, and just, but so the loan officer thing, how this started was I'd actually interviewed doing like medical device sales. I wanted to look for a job that I could be a present dad and husband.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at sales. I had no concept of sales. I used to go to the gym in the summer when I was a teacher, and I'd see people at the gym at 9 a.m. I'm like, what do these people do for work?
Yeah.
Like a lot of unemployed people at the gym. I had no concept of that because my life was run by bells.
Oh, that's right. Because as a teacher, okay,
everything was run by bells. So anyways, long story short, talked to a couple people about something because I wanted to have my own thing. And then my friend Chris, our daughters played soccer together. We're dropping the kids off at school one day, and he goes, just come work for me. And at the time, I didn't really understand what he did.
Right. So I don't think any of us do when we find out.
Well, I honestly thought the way, I'm like, oh, okay. I had my mortgages through banks. I didn't realize what direct lender was. I didn't realize what broker. I had no idea. So I thought I was going to be entertaining clients, like going golfing and like at a bank. And then it's like, no, you're going to be a loan officer. And I'm like, oh. So I had, but anyways, I'm like, this is going to be a great opportunity. I met with him and his manager, who I'd actually randomly known through baseball for a long time. I got my license. They hired me and took a chance on me. I think, it was a big risk. Any business where you're hiring someone that's totally brand new, but I think they knew that I was personable. I had a big connection to people, being in education. And for me, I didn't go talk to anyone else because I'm like, I want to work with you guys because you're taking a chance on me. I'm comfortable with you. Maybe I can go somewhere else and make more money or have more products, whatever. Like, I didn't know anything. So I got hired in July of 2017. So I basically had like a little over a year where I was just kind of helping Tony with her business.
Yeah.
And then I got my license and got a refi on my first day.
Wow, on your first day?
Because I was telling like all the guys I coached Little League with, I'm like, hey, making a career change. I'll be doing loans, and rates at that time were probably like in the 4s. And a guy I coached with and a friend of mine, he's like, hey, we need a refi. So I didn't know what I was doing.
Wow.
Those guys, Chris and John, they basically did the whole loan, and I got paid on it. But I got to sit there. And
what was the first 2 years of the industry of your career like? If you had to take yourself back there emotionally and being in that seat and waking up in the mornings and having to go into that job? Like, what was your state of mind? What did you feel like? What was it like? Because 2017, 2018 was not exactly a cakewalk.
No, they weren't at all.
That was 18 was one of our tough years.
Right. So, I did half a year in 2017. 2018 was, it was definitely tough. So I was, doing all the coffee appointments of trying to meet with everybody. I was trying to, I did that in the same town where I was known as Mr. Templeman as a teacher and vice principal.
Oh, so you had a good conduit over into mortgages.
Yes and no. Yes, because I had so many kids. I taught 1,500 kids and had been involved. I worked at 4 or 5 schools too.
Right.
But then now, like, wait, you were the vice principal. Now you're a mortgage guy? Like, okay. So I kind of had it. That was in my head. Like, people aren't going to work with me.
Well, it's kind of like Grant Cardone says, though, love me or hate me, at least you're talking about me.
Yeah.
So, like, you had a big advantage. You were in front of a large amount of people, so you saw the value of being known before you were heard.
Right.
Which is why we do so much digital and social in this office, right? I worked at a restaurant for 6 years that's really popular in town. When I got into mortgages, everyone was like, I know you from somewhere.
Exactly.
And it had a lot of credibility because it was like one of the most popular restaurants, and so it helped me out. And I saw the value of triangle, reputation, being involved with the right people.
Right.
Okay, so financially, in the house, like, let's get raw. Like, financially, like, and we don't need details, but like in your marriage and your relationship with your kids in the first 2 years, like, did you see them a lot? Did you work a lot? Did you feel like you were?
I definitely. No, I was busy. I was meeting. I was trying to soak up as much information as possible. So I was still coaching the kids. I was still coaching Little League soccer. That for you. So I made that's, as you've known, come to know me. That's a huge priority for me. So, but if I took time to be able to do that, I'm then working later, taking phone calls or on my emails later on when they're going to bed or whatever, because jumping from, I came from a district where we were required to respond to emails within a certain time period. And so naturally, did this job, like,
wrong industry here, buddy.
Well, it is crazy working with, when we get to work with, certain people, like, you're like, I can't believe I haven't heard from them in a week. We got $1 million deal going right now. So, my first 2017, I think my W-2 was $17,000.
I don't cut the cheese.
No, but we knew that going into it. And then the next year, so I went from doing, whatever it was, like basically 0.5 million in 6 months to, I think I did, I'm looking at my math, I think I did $6 million the next year.
Nice.
I had a huge gap where, and the way I was paid, and it was my fault, I had to draw against commission. So, I did a couple loans in February, and then it was like 4 months.
It's like, yeah, close 2 loans and you get no paycheck.
That's what I had a freak out. I'm like, oh my gosh, because I was expecting like a commission check of $8,000 or whatever.
Right.
But anyways, so financially it was tough. I mean, Tony, I tell her all the time, like, without you, obviously I took a huge risk. We both did. We did it for lifestyle. We did it to be more present parents. So that 2018 was, 2017, 2018, those were tough.
So let's take some notes for some things that, like, probably people are dealing with right now, real time. Mm-hmm. There are probably people right now within 2 years of their career, they were experiencing some success when we got in and things were a little bit easier and there was more inventory. And right now they're kind of freaking out financially. The household's, tight. What I took away from what you just said was, number one, you made a commitment and went all in.
Yes.
You didn't say, like, kind of, sort of. It was 100%. I'm walking away from a career and I got to do this. The second thing was there was another source of income. So whether it be a spouse or whether it was like me, I worked 3 jobs. Right. I waited tables and bartended on the weekends. But that was the other thing. And the third thing, is it safe to say that you guys did have some sort of cushion, nest egg, and savings that gave you some comfort?
Some.
You weren't going into it blindly.
No. But it wasn't, it was something that we created too. Like, we created, whether we had a nest egg or a little bit of savings, but we were running through the savings. 2018, I mean, it was definitely, it felt we're back in our teacher days. I'm like, we basically, you're living paycheck to paycheck. But so 2018 was tough, but John, the guy I worked with, he was just like, just keep doing what you're doing. Was
he mentoring you? Did he give you a blueprint, kind of like, hey, go do these things?
Yeah, good. John will admit, and he can be, not as organized with some of that stuff. And I say that in a loving way because I love the guy, but because he took a chance on me. But yeah, the ideas of who I should be talking to, talking to, all that stuff. So it's like scripted stuff. So
you had a mentor.
I had a mentor.
You also said, I picked up on something like, You didn't talk to a bunch of people. You trusted him.
Yeah. And
Man.
Yeah. So that's a huge part of our success. I think any loan officer is the team you choose to work with, or a mentor or a coach. So yeah, up until, last year, like when we still work together, like he's a huge advocate and just asset to me. But yeah, you're doing the right things. Like he's been in it for, 20 something years as well. And he's like, I've seen all this. So
what the next 5 years start looking like after that? You start getting some legs up underneath you 2 years in?
Yeah. So it was, I can remember it was April of 2019. April 2019? Yeah. When I closed a deal for a former student.
Okay.
So that's what having my network of teachers and students. So former student who I'm close with, the family and all that. Like, as far as like I coached your brother in baseball and just really close.
So you stayed actively involved in your previous network.
And I think I can't. That's my database. Like I reach out to my database now all the time.
Yeah. So your network database from your previous life into your new life was super important. I see that big mistake all the time. Oh, I used to be in healthcare, and I'm like, well, how many of the people in healthcare are you calling or touching bases with, or try to see or have lunch with, and they don't do it? And I'm like, use your previous life for your new life.
So now April of 2019 is when things started to kind of pick up. Now, granted, I started July 2017, so it's almost 2 years, but I kept doing the coffee appointments, kept doing the follow-up with client, reaching out trying to do everything that I could just to stay relevant. I wanted people to always remember that I was a loan officer. I'm not a teacher anymore. Always had my Bay Equity, my old company, had their hat on, shirt. I was all...
You were all in.
Yeah, because...
He was all in.
I took a huge risk. I mean, I left, and in California, granted now, when you look at wages versus property values, but we bought at a great time and we made good money as teachers. I could have done that for an educator. I could have done that, but I wouldn't have been as happy. And I had a pension, all these guarantees.
Right.
But yeah, I took a huge risk. So I just, I was all in. And yeah, that moment I helped her buy a condo, and then people were reaching back out to me. I still remember like, hey, remember we talked a couple months back, whatever. And so from 2019 on, like business has been.
Are you all in now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Val, are you all in? Oh, you are. Did you notice that sometimes you ask people that question, what do they say? What do you mean?
What do you mean?
They're not all in. It's a very simple question. So for our viewers out there, I would coach you and suggest ask yourself, am I all in? It's a pretty simple question. And if the answer is no, it's okay. What areas of your life or your business do you need to reevaluate?
Yeah. I think it also, I have a family, and, I got expenses that we have. Both our kids are involved in sports, and they both want to go to college. So like, there's a lot of things that drive me to being all in.
You get a lot of haircuts.
I get more haircuts than anybody, and I get my haircut like every week, really. But yeah, so it's just being consistent. 100%. There are days, even now, where this last year for all of us was rough. I have to look at my compensation and be like, okay, it's still more than I made as an educator.
Right. We
still have a great life. We're still able to pay our bills.
Live in a great city.
Things are gonna turn around. You just keep doing the work. And so I told Tony, like when 2020, all that, I'm like, this is not normal. So we did a good job of putting money away for a rainy day. 2022, 2023 were those like rainy days where, the checks weren't as big as they were in 2020 and 2021.
Well, you skipped over that whole segment because you were rocking and rolling, and then along came the epidemic. So what was that like for you? Where were you at in that? And then how did you get from California to Franklin, Tennessee?
So yeah, with the pandemic, I was locked up pretty much in our front office, our bedroom, working because, we couldn't go out and see anybody and all that. So, that was absolutely insane.
Did the market out there just stop, or did it keep going like out here?
Most of my stuff was all refis.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that was kind of a blessing.
100% it was a blessing. But even so, between 2020 and 2021, I think I was like 65% refi and 35% purchase, which I wasn't all refi. Our old, CEO at Bay Equity, they were very like, just remember, this is not normal. Don't forget about your realtors. They were very like, don't get realtors, which I appreciated. So, the realtors, not being able to do the open houses, not being, certain things that they were used to doing, way to show client stuff. It was very stressful for them. So always checking in on them. But yeah, it was, and in the middle of that too, Tony and I were talking about moving. Like we were talking about moving for a few years, and then the pandemic hit.
Right.
And, it got to the point where, and if I'm skipping around, you tell me what.
No, this is good. You're going a good line. So the epidemic taught you had to work from home. You're working from home. You start reevaluating your circumstances like everybody else out there.
Exactly.
And you're like, I can do this job from somewhere else.
Yeah. And so essentially got to the point where, looking at my kids and then I was intrigued by going somewhere else because I'd been in the Bay Area my whole life. Family was the biggest thing, leaving my parents and my sister were very tight. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be, but I had to look at, I think this is a good opportunity for my kids. Where are my kids going to buy in California down the road? So basically we were going back and forth about whether or not to move. We came out here during the pandemic. Flights were like $99, so cheap because no one was flying.
Okay.
So we flew out here, and then ultimately, in like October, November of that year, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Tony was waiting on me. Like she would have moved years ago.
I tell people when they come to Tennessee, there's two things about Tennessee that you need to be told that a lot of people don't tell you. And there's two things you have to look out for. And this is where you can be, number one, I call it getting Broadwayed. Mm-hmm. So be prepared. If you go down to Broadway, don't get Broadwayed. If you don't know what that is, just take notes, okay? Right. You'll see someone laying on the sidewalk. Right. The second one is you got Tennessee'd.
Yeah.
So you fell in love with it when you came here, with the greenery, the people.
It took me a while.
Did it really?
Because my whole thing, we were talking for like 5 years about moving somewhere. And when I say we, I'm talking about Tony. And she'll laugh when she sees this because it's totally true. So, but her whole thing was like, we could do our jobs elsewhere and the financial benefits,
But you're leaving all your family, your roots, everybody you knew.
Correct. So I was really worried about business. I was worried about, oh my God, because my business at that point was kind of on cruise control.
Yeah.
I had my realtors, I had my referral partners, I had my past clients. There's people that bought in 2018, and every 6 months I refied them because this is how rates were. So I had a good network out there. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to go away, and now I'm going to have to come to Tennessee and do the exact same thing, go to coffee appointments. And
so how'd you make that decision?
Ultimately, it was watching my kids. They were miserable. And I'm like, I can't do this. Like, this is the fact that things for kids here didn't stop. Kids, granted, they're out of school for a little bit or had to do Zoom, whatever it was, but they still got to play sports, activities. And I'm very, I don't knock California or any of, that's just what was going on at the time. And I go, you know what? We don't have to move, but let's give it a shot. Because we didn't have to move. I didn't get fired.
Right.
Get a job transfer. We took a leap of faith and,
And you went all in.
All in again.
You didn't get a second home here, and then nothing against that. We'll finance that too, but
we looking back, I'm like, that would have been because our house that we sold just sold for a buttload more than what we sold it for, but then we wouldn't have been where we're at in our neighborhood now. So hindsight's 2020. But yeah, so we sold our house off market. Our agents that we worked with, and they were also business partners with me as far as doing deals. They brought us a buyer, and I didn't want a bunch of people in our house during that time. And so it just all kind of worked out.
So the kids influence the big part of the decision.
The impact on
which I think that has, sorry to interrupt you, but just I want to make a point that I think that we all need to take notes on that, because there's about 2 or 3 major factors, maybe 4 or 5, that people make big life decisions. Yep. And your hinge on the door was your kids.
Right.
And because Tennessee, we didn't shut down as much, whatever all the details are, but that's important.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about this. What about if you're a kid? What about if you're a parent who has a kid who's a football standout, basketball standout? They have no other shot really to kind of go to college or anything, didn't really do well or anything, but they were robbed of that final season.
Yeah.
What about the kid who finally was going to go to senior prom,
Yep.
The graduations, the weddings, the funerals were what broke my heart. Mm-hmm. Was the state here, we didn't stop doing that. We kept on kind of doing that stuff. So
yeah,
you moved out to Tennessee.
Yep. So we moved January 1, 2021.
Franklin, Tennessee, Williamson County. And then you continued to work for your company. You were building your relationships. And then we met, almost a year now, maybe not.
A little less than
a year. And we met each other through social and digital, didn't we?
You reached out to me.
Sent you a DM.
Yeah. So I posted, I would always try to post something on my social media, but I really took time on a reel, and I was doing it in our kitchen. I did a whole thing about, the calculators that you see on or mortgage or real estate websites.
Not having everything in them.
And not trusting them.
Yeah.
People would always,
I remember that.
Yeah. So I did this whole thing, and then, you messaged me, and I think you going through my stuff, you saw we went to Disney World, and it was like, hey, striking up a conversation, and it's always good to know people in the industry. So yeah, that's how it started. You sent me a DM, and we just kind of went back and forth there, and then it got to the point where we're like, hey, we should just meet up.
Yeah.
And you're like on a Friday.
We were talking about video, talking about the business, and then we kept in touch, and we said, what would it look like if you came over and teamed up? Mm-hmm. So now we're here. And what's it been like this year so far? Like, what's your business look like? Share some of your victories and share some of your struggles, maybe of what you've been learning this year with your realtors out there and our people that are watching.
I think, 2024 has definitely got off to a great start for me. And I think a lot of that's just being consistent and having a plan, and, the coaching, has been huge for me. For me, it's been accountability. There'd be times in 2023 when, where we get frustrated, and it's just like instead of like, I should pick up the phone and call someone or go meet someone, I would just kind of shut down. Just things got frustrating. So, and that happens now. It happens to all of us in every job. There's days where you're like, oh my gosh, this sucks, because whatever happens, something with the deal. So 2024 has been great so far. Every week, I think I told you the other day, every week I've locking at least one or multiple deals a week, which has been great, and being consistent.
But you're working really, really hard. And I know you won't promote yourself too much, but I will. What I observe in you is there has not been a day that I don't think I've seen in the last 90 days where I walk in, and at some point throughout the day, you're not on the phone. So he does his power hours, and in those power hours, he's reaching out to his key contacts. But he's not just saying, hey, give me another lead. I noticed that it's real teacher mentality. Have you found that transition from being an educator to being a mortgage rep? Has that helped you?
Yeah, my life was talking to people all day, selling content to people, in a way. But yeah, and talking in front of groups, talking in front of a staff of 150. So I have no problem talking to people.
You had to probably be on video too with the school system, right? Like Zooms or things like that? In front of a lot of people?
Not really. A lot of it was in person, but Zoom occasionally.
You weren't on the morning TV that came on in the morning with the reports?
It was when I was vice principal, I'd be on there, but no, sometimes on Zoom. But, that was like, schools having Twitter accounts was like a new thing. We're going to have a Facebook page.
Oh, yeah.
New.
That wasn't it.
So, but a lot of stuff was in person.
Okay.
Speaking skills and just being able to, people, I was actually on the phone with someone earlier where talking about being creative, and sometimes I'm not the most creative, but and I look back at my teaching career, I was really good at connecting with kids and connecting with people, making things relevant to them. I may have been the most creative in creating a lesson plan, but what I had with me already, I could make relevant, I could make it, so I feel like in my conversations with clients, I do a good job with empathy, understanding hey, I've been there before. As the first part of this video, I went on a long tangent. Sometimes, I really make those connections with clients at the beginning. I really want to know them as a person. I want to know the story, and I want to share a little bit about myself, because I might find some commonality in their experience that I experienced myself, or another client of mine might experience. So I think people, what's been good with my phone calls and getting new clients and leads is, making people feel comfortable, like I'm someone I'm actually listening. And I have some responses. I have some suggestions. So yeah,
I think you're pretty creative, just to tell you though.
No.
And you know what I've started working on is don't tell yourself you're not. Say I'm currently working on being more creative.
I am currently, I'm definitely out of my comfort zone with social media like before, which I do get a lot of people commenting when it's something that's super basic. Everyone's like, hey, I saw your video. That was great. I'm like, oh, awesome. I really appreciate that. That's new for me.
A lot of loan officers ask, and realtors will say, well, why? Hey, do you get business out of that? And I think, immediately that's when I start trying to, teach them and coach them and help them understand that, we don't go into this with that purpose. Yeah. We go into it for the purpose of what you just said. I go into it in a purpose when I get the DM that says, hey, I really needed to hear that today. Or I've really been struggling in my business. That's a great idea. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Because that's our culture here. And I think that's why I asked you to come in here and, hang out for a few minutes and, share with the community out there. And if you had to go back to that time when you either came here, relocated, or maybe you came into the industry, like what's something you would have gone back and done different?
I think looking back, I can make excuses for me having an office here and my whole team being back in California with my old company. I think I wish I would have found some accountability system or coaching before. To be honest, like that was offered. There was an avenue for me to access coaching through my old company, but I didn't want to spend the money that it's one of those things like you got to spend the money. But I'm like, I don't know. First off, like the fund, we don't have like the excess funds that we had in 2020 and 2021. Like, and so just throwing however much money towards coaching didn't make sense to us. So, anyways, looking back, like I would have I had some really great years. My career's been great. But I look back, if I was held more accountable, if I was more structured with certain things, my calendar, being consistent with my phone calls, there's a lot of things that I've learned since coming over here that I don't want to say it's basic, but it's stuff that I think everybody, all businesses, whether you're a loan officer, some realtor, it needs structure. And what you never want to show up not knowing what to do.
I think something you just said is like something that will never go out of style. Like getting a mentor, coach, somebody you look up to, whatever it is. Like I don't care about the word, that it will always be there. They're like, you seem so coachable, and like I kind of hate the word. I don't really like it. And like, no, what I am is I grew up without having somebody show me how to do all that. So I had to go find that person, and I did. But what I would do is I would always be like, well, I don't need to be a dummy. Why don't I find the person I know or seek out the person I know that is the best at this?
Right.
So what you just named was the 3 legs of each table that I tell people. And this is what I think people will go back in 3 to 5 years and say, I wish I would have done this different. Yeah. And that one will never go out of style. The second one that's been added is you're going to have people say, I wish I would have worked on building my brand and my social and my digital presence more. Right. And that third part of that table, you just named it, is a culture of accountability, being in a culture somewhere of accountability. If you're in a mortgage office and you're on an island by yourself, or you got better pricing just because you work above your garage, like that's going to end up coming to the top, and you're going to feel isolated, and you're not going to have the culture and the accountability community to be talking about and sharing ideas like this.
Right.
What are you currently working on? What are you excited about right now in your business in this year?
There's a couple. I was actually emailing cross country the Affinity program, trying to get connected with some big companies, and in terms of being the preferred lender. So
for the people that don't know, Affinity program is where we partner with companies, corporations on their employee base. So we offer your employee base an entire discount off rates and fees and things like that if we become the Affinity partner as the mortgage lender for the company. Yeah. So if you're interested, reach out to our Affinity partnership local expert, Ryan Templeman.
Working on that with a couple places around here. That's be pretty exciting.
Nice.
Getting out and doing my own events now is exciting. So I have with a couple realtor friends of mine, partners that I've worked with. So doing a couple, in-person events with whether it be move-up buyers, first-time buyers, other agents, or offering CE credit. So I'm planning all that stuff. And those are all the things that I kind of wish I would have done before. I always I want to do an event or even if it's casual, like, hey, like a coffee meetup, but yeah. So I think just trying some, cross country does have a lot of different programs like that. And the Affinity program sounds pretty enticing, but I think I'm really just, I am proud of myself in the sense that I am very consistent with my work. I've been very consistent since coming over here in terms of like what I do on a day-to-day basis, and yeah, so I'm always on the phone. You always walk over to me with my AirPods in, and we got my sign like, hey, don't come. Shawn's probably like, you jerk. But I'm like, I'm on the phone with someone.
And you also, though, you were like, when we were talking and we were like, well, what would it look like for you to maybe come over and join forces? I was like, do you have any problem with like learning how to do video? You were like all in, and you're doing it. You got a great page. Yeah. You're very consistent. What you don't see is how hard he works behind the scenes at making sure he's like building a business and prospecting and, making sure his calendar's full throughout a day. You treat it like a business, but you've also, just like the rest of us, he's gotten deals. He's having success. You've gotten some new accounts, and he's lost deals. Yeah. And it's very hard out there in the industry right now. And I really appreciate you coming today and sharing like that journey and that risk that you took. Yeah. And I'm sure the fear was there, but I really appreciate you, and I appreciate you as a person, and I enjoy every day. I feel like I learned something new about you. So I'd recommend you guys give Ryan a follow. All his information will be below. We'll tag his Instagram and his other pages. If you want to join his newsletter list, I'll put his link below too. He puts out a great weekly newsletter. Join that newsletter list. So thanks for being here, Ryan.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.